esse momento para apresentar uma pessoa muito especial que fez aniversário no mês de... no dia, se não me engano, 17 ou 7 de agosto.
She's saying maybe July, someone who had a birthday, and a very special day, July the 31st, no? 31st, 31.
É com a Svetlana.
Yeah, Sister Svetlana.
Yes.
Please come here.
And you also did
Na quinta-feira também foi meu aniversário.
On Thursday also she's saying was my birthday.
Então, esse texto é para nós duas, irmã.
So this Bible verse is for two of us.
O verso encontra-se em Números, capítulo 6, versículo 24 a 26.
Numbers
6, 24 a 26.
Numbers 6, 24 to 26. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace.
Amém?
Amém.
Irmã Svetlana, eu quero dizer que a caminhada com Cristo nesse mundo é uma jornada bastante árdua.
I want to say, Sister Solana, that to walk with Jesus in this life is not easy.
Mas é de paz.
But
Se estamos com Ele, temos paz.
but if we are with Him, we have peace.
E a gente chegou até aqui com muitas lutas e muitas vitórias.
So we arrived up to today, with many fights and many difficulties in life,
E muitas vitórias.
and many victories as well.
E eu desejo que nós tenhamos mais vitória ainda.
I wish that for us, that still with the help of the Lord, we will experience more victories.
Que cada caminho que a gente trilhar, cada decisão a tomar, que Jesus seja o centro das nossas decisões.
Every step we do, every step in life, Jesus always be the center of our decisions.
Amém?
Amen. Amen.
This is for me. Thank you very much.
And for Rosie, I will give later because I didn't expect sister will be back earlier. So that is why we brought only one. But I give the to Rosie later.
I would like to tell just that Sister Rosie is have a special talent, not only for singing, but for remembering our birthday, and she's like an agency which know in every moment who has a birthday, and thank you very much for this. Okay, and happy birthday also.
May God bless you.
Now we're gonna turn it over to Brother George with some more spiritual blessing that he's got to give us from the Lord. So I think he's gonna speak about happiness today. So let us have happy faces because he's gonna speak about happiness. So we should,
My beloved brethren in Jesus Christ, I wish to all of you peace of God. For me, this is one of the most important gifts which we can receive from God. When we have peace and His blessing, we have everything. First of all, I want to bring you many greetings from United States of America, from Italy, and from Serbia. I visited that 3 countries in one relatively short period.
Scotland.
Yeah, also I visited Scotland. I saw some Adventist people there in Edinburgh and Sister Ildiko. And you have many greetings. They're far from us, but we need to think about one another and to pray for one another. My wife and me, we had the privilege to visit our brethren in Virginia. Our General Conference organized there 1 concert, 2 concerts in Sacramento, but we couldn't go in Sacramento. We visited people in Virginia, in Roanoke. And you know that our church, Reform Movement, is a relatively small church. Altogether in the world, we have maybe 40,000 people in whole world. And when I was young, and now I'm 63, when I was young, we didn't have many educated people, especially in the musical sphere. And my wife and me, we play musical instruments which are not so, how to say, common. And people invited me to join to that orchestra, and we praised the Lord with beautiful music. We had 2 beautiful concerts in Virginia and in Florence, in Italy. It was a beautiful experience for us. When you play with the youth people, you also feel that you are young. And I got the idea after that visit in America. I got the idea to share with you some precious moments. I met there some of my friends. I visited USA a few times, and natively I'm from Serbia. In United States, there are living many people from Europe, from Serbia, Croatia, and other former Yugoslavian countries. And I met many of them. In one moment, I asked for one old minister. His name is Alfredo Carlos Sass. And I asked some people, that people are still alive, that men are still alive. And they confirmed to me, they told me, yeah, he's still alive. And I was impressed. I saw him, literally. He is 97 years old. He was president of the General Conference. And I was so happy when I saw him. Now he is living in Australia. And he collected energy and he decided to visit people in United States, in South America, because he spent his life in different countries. Majority of his life he spent in Brazil. And it was a so beautiful moment when I spoke with him. He remembered me. He visited us also in Europe, in my country. And it was interesting what's happened. Maybe 1 hour later, he invited me and showed me that book. In that book, this is the story of his life. And he invited me to tell him, may I recognize some people in that book. Yeah, my sermon topic will be about happiness, or how we can be happy in our homes, in our families, in our churches. And this is that book which I mentioned, and he opened that book and asked me, may I recognize that people? Maybe it is not so good projector and the light is too strong, but normally I recognized. It was my wife, and that picture was made in Bulgaria in 1992, I think.
1996.
6, okay, thank you. You can see better than me, thank you. This is brother, he is minister in Bulgaria, his wife, and here is our son, Boris, and it's me. Yeah.
I was deeply here. You're not.
No, you were not born yet. And I was impressed because brother Carlos Sass didn't forget us. And he got me that book for free. That book is gift from me. And I was impressed. I didn't expect that. I read that book and understood how difficult life Brother Sass had. And I want to share with you a few moments from his life which are written in that book. On that picture you can see his family 20 years ago. Last part of his life he spent in Australia. He was born in Hungary. In that time it was Romania, north part of Romania. And he had a very turbulent life. As a small boy, he was born in, maybe you can read. It is a story about his father.
This is a complete Hungarian name, right?
Sister can help us.
His name is with said, well, it was changed to Brazilian way, we said. Yeah, it's Hungarian way. So,
Shush, how you can read in the Hungary?
yeah.
Yeah, Sas. And he was born in turbulent time. You know that after First World War, Austro-Hungarian Empire disappeared, disintegrated. And in Europe, people spent turbulent time, poverty. Many people decided to find better life in Western countries, in North America. But parents of Brother Sas, they decided to move in Brazil. And it was hard decision. His father was a shoemaker. He tried to study something at university, but because of economical circumstances, he must stop. And they decided to move in Brazil. Later, they made a picture. This is Brother Carlo. His brother, later he died. His father, mother, and
And the other brother, I think.
yes.
He was.
They belong to the Adventist Church, Seventh-day Adventist Church. You know that this is Protestant church, and because of circumstances, after First World War, between Adventists happened divisions. And later, in 1925, started a Reform movement, our church. In that time, the father of Brother Carlo, he was minister in Mother Church, in Adventist Church. And he tried to, to support some reform in that church. He invited people on revive. And he invited people that they must obey 10 commandments earnestly and strictly. But majority of people didn't accept that. And after one period of time, they were disfellowshipped from the church. And later, Brother Carlo made one picture with one sister in Hungary. And in that time, in 1995, she was still alive. And she was one of our pioneers. And with many people in Adventist Church, they disfellowship there because they want to be obedient strictly to the 10 Commandments. And they start, family Sas, they decided to move, as I mentioned, in Brazil. It was not easy decision because in Brazil also they had some economical problems. They had revolutions there, and they got it. How to tell in English? This is a military regime or dictator. Yeah, it was difficult time, but they moved there, and their life was very difficult, and they decided to live relatively close to the city of Sao Paulo. You know, Sao Paulo is one of the biggest cities in the world. And it was not easy. His father tried to earn money for family so that he will repair shoes. But people in Brazil on that time was they didn't have money to repair shoes. Majority of them, they walk without any shoes. And they had a big problem, how to survive. You can see the pictures of his mom. This is Brother Carlo and his smaller brother and sister. We cannot imagine how poor were that people. Today, we complain because of some economical crisis here in England or other countries, but we cannot imagine how life could be big challenge. His brother of Carlo, Francisco, When he fulfilled, I think, 14 years, he decided to work in construction. And he worked as a bricklayer. And he make money for whole family. But under very hard circumstances, he lost his life. And they were desperate. It was not easy to lose son and brother. And brother Carlo, as a small boy, he contributed strongly to his family. As a small boy, he needs to learn how to work on the farm, how to prepare food. Small boy, as a 12 years, something like that. And he wrote, "Plowing was my favorite work on the farm. I was very skinny," he wrote, "weak and short. But he wanted to help to his sister and to his parents." Their life was very, very, very hard. And now I need to use my glasses. Their main food was polenta. You know what is polenta? I don't know how it is in England, but when I was a small boy, main food in countryside in Europe was that food. How they got it? In Romania, this is mamaliga, yeah. Probably in England, you had this. This is food from corn flour. You mixed corn flour with the hot water, and little by little you got that food. And Brother Sas wrote that it was his main food, and he was not so happy. But polenta, milk, and sour cream was their main food. But they survived. At the age of 9, he started to prepare himself to learn how to cook. Can you imagine? Brother Tom, do you know to prepare some food? Miguel, you know to cook? Little, maybe? What is the name? Do you know to prepare some food? Not yet. How old are you? 11. But can you imagine? With 9 years, Brother Carlo, he must prepare food. Why? Because man was absent, sister was younger, and he must start to learn. And what's happened? One day, Mom told to him that he need to prepare chicken for Sabbath day. And it was not chicken from the shop, only meat. He must kill that chicken. And instead to kill, he was not so skillful, and the chicken escaped. He injures, but not kill, absolutely. And later he wrote, it was horrific moment. He remembered for whole life how it's terrible to kill somebody that he can eat. Later, maybe when he had 12 years and more, parents authorized him that he can care for cows. I remember when I was maybe 18 years, I visited my relatives in Croatia. They were farmers, and sometimes I care for cows. It is not so easy if you have 1, 2, but he had 9 cows, and he should care for all of them. And problem is, when cows need, when they got, I don't know how to say in English, when they need bulk, Yeah, in that moment, they are not calm. Cows start to cry and they start to run. It is not easy to care for them. But what happened with Brother Carlo, small boy? Instead to care for cows, he tried to find some fruits on the trees, and he lost maybe 5 cows. They went to other fields, and he was shocked. What happened? And he started to find, to search for them. And they found them in the bush. Usually every cow had a rope. And when you, lead the cow, you use that rope. And cow is much more stronger. But he found it that one of that cow almost died because a rope blocked the neck in the wilderness. And the small boy, he started to pray because he realized that in maybe a few minutes, cow will die. And it was an interesting experience for small boy. He had a so hard life, but he wanted to help his parents, his sisters, brothers as a small boy. You can see their mom made clothes for them from sackcloth. Very poor society. And Brother Sass wrote that it was extreme poverty. He spent that first part of his life in extreme poverty, but he was happy. Why? Because he was young, and he had a friendship with his parents, with his brothers, sisters, and he also enjoyed in his life. Instead, that life was hard, but he wanted to serve to one another, and he wanted to praise the Lord. Also, he had his hobby. His hobby was to search the bush, the forest, to contemplate the birds, to copy their voices. And also later, he started to play violin. Can you imagine? So big poverty, but Hungarian people, they're very good, musical, talented. And now this is that moment when he first time earnestly prayed to the Lord. And he told that it was miracle. When he finished his prayer, by miracle, God delivered that cow. And when he said amen, miracle happened, and that cow released from that rope. One time, his mother traveled by coach, and from some reason, coach capsized, and he broke 3 ribs. But they were faithful to God. And interesting, he also wrote about his conversion when he had 11 years. Interesting experience. Like David, he started to contemplate about God, how he's merciful, and he read Matthew 25, 31 to 41. Do you know what is that? This is moment when Jesus spoke about the end of the time. And Jesus will divide whole humankind how? On the right side and left side. Who will be on the right side? Sheep. And on the left side will be who? Goats. And small Carlo started to think about God's mercy, and he converted that time. When he fulfilled, I think, 12 years or 14, I'm not sure, he decided to baptize. But a Bible worker who was authorized to prepare himself, he told to him, can you deliver a sermon like the president of the General Conference? If you cannot, you are not ready for baptism. And normally a small boy cannot prepare a sermon like adult, like a minister, like president of General Conference. But he wrote later that he was smallest, the shortest people who baptized And he was very early decided to serve the Lord. So beautiful. Later, brother invited him that he can become colporteur or canvasser. And he started to canvassing, but problem was his parents cannot provide to him good clothes. They were very poor. They were very without money. And they borrow money. They bought first suit for him, and he started to canvass. And he started to canvass without special success. He worked as a colporteur a few months, but without special effects, because nobody teach him how to do it. He knocked on the door, but people usually ignore him. And later, he decided to change his work. He started to work as a builder for a few months, but physically he was very weak, and he realized that he cannot survive if he continued to work as a builder. And church invited again him to work in the printing house. It was a publishing house in Brazil in 1952. Publishing house in Vila Matilda. This is one of the biggest church in Sao Paulo in that time in Brazil. Later, he started to study, to work in that branch, in that job. He was a linotypist. It was also, he was very successful in that job. And later, he became a manager in that institution. And when he was 18 years old, he decided to marry. This is his girlfriend, Katarina. And he openly spoke with her parents. And mom of Katarina replied to him, okay, you can marry, but you must wait 2 years, because before 20, she cannot be married. And Carlos accepted. And that 2 years expired. Carlos asked her, are she ready? And she replied, yeah, I'm ready. But he replied, I'm not ready. Why? Because he didn't have his property. He didn't have his house. And now he asked her that she must wait 1.5 years. And they decided to wait one another so beautifully. But be careful now. We will read that paragraph from his book. We spent some weekends together in her home, which was situated about 60 kilometers from where we were living at that time. I had the opportunity to meet her once a month at least. Our friendship was conducted in a Christian way. Both of us were very careful to behave ourselves as true Christians. There were those, of course, who thought that we were silly fellows, but we did not worry about that. The way we carried on our courtship was with a clear conscience, without offense before God and man. No hugging and kissing. Can you imagine that? How is today behaviors? I saw many times in the church, youth people hug one another, kiss. But can you imagine? He never kissed and hugged his girlfriend. How long? 3.5. She first waited him 2 years, and later, opposite. He waited her 2 years, and later she waited him 1.5 years. I mentioned one time, maybe you remember, we spoke in the afternoon program about courtship. And I mentioned that I spent 10 years in courtship with my wife. Svetlana is here. 10 years. 10 years.
Well, she was 10 years old. Oh.
Yeah, I spent in courtship with her 10 years.
No, for 10 years.
For 10 years.
No. She waited me and I waited her 10 years before our marriage because I'm not ready, like a brother Carlos.
Brother George, you're a saint.
No.
Maybe.
No. I cannot tell that I never hug and kiss my wife. I sometimes kiss my wife before marriage, and it was not perfect. And some people saw us in the city and told to the committee. And it was a problem for us. We were not so faithful like Brother Carlo and his wife. Why I spoke to you today, my dear brethren? Because ethical standards today are lower and lower, brethren. Be careful.
Yeah.
I mentioned I want to speak about happiness. If you want to be happy, only way to be happy is what? To obedient to God. And we have strictly rules in the Bible about courtship, about marriage, about everything in the life. And sometimes that rule seems to us it is not so beautiful. But later, I didn't finish to read that book. But I spoke with that brother, and other people told me that he got a big family. I'm not sure now. He had 6 children and many grandchildren and grand-grandchildren. He's really happy.
He was here, brother, in London. He was here before we had church.
Yeah.
He visited us in the house of Brother Paul.
Yeah, so beautiful. And as I mentioned, his life was so turbulent. He was born in Hungary. Majority of his life he spent in Brazil. Later, he moved in Australia. He visited many countries in the world. And as usually, he has a lack of money. But he was happy. He and his wife and children. Why? Because they strictly obey the God's will. This is only way, my dear brethren. Sometimes it seems to us that it is, too strict to us. No kissing, no hugging, no. Okay. But we need to know that God knows what is better, what is best for us. Only way is to be obedient to the Lord, to the God. And he waited his wife, and she waited him. And finally, they married. How they married? You can see in that house. Yeah, nice place, but not so, luxurious. It was Brazil in that time. I remember when I was married, we organized that ceremony and that lunch in the church. But today, our son Boris, he rented an expensive restaurant. Today is custom that people spend money for nothing.
That was his house?
I'm not sure, maybe it was church. In this house, a little farmhouse, our wedding was performed, he wrote, I don't know. But it was important that they respected whatever Lord asked from them. And as I mentioned, God blessed them. Few years later, they got their children, Lydia, Daniel. I don't know, they have a custom to have more names. And it was so beautiful. I want to encourage, especially youth people, be obedient to God. Sometimes biblical rules, it seems to us too strict, too narrow. But brethren, this is only way to be happy, to obedient to God. Now I want to share with you some paragraph from the Spirit of Prophecy. if our lives are filled with a holy fragrance, if we honor God by having good thoughts toward others and doing good deeds to bless others, it matters not whether we live in a cottage or in a palace. Circumstances have but little to do with the experiences of the soul. It is the spirit cherished which gives coloring to all our actions. A man at peace with God and his fellow man cannot be made miserable. He spent majority of his life in poverty, but he was happy because he was in peace with God and with his neighbors. The heart in harmony with God is lifted above the annoyances and trials of this life. So may the Lord bless all of us, that we can decide, like Brother Carlos, to be faithful to God, to obey whatever He commanded us. May the Lord bless us, that we can serve to the Lord and to our neighbors. Only where Christ reigns can there be deep, true, unselfish love. Those who will find true happiness must have the blessing of heaven upon all they possess and all that they do. It is disobedience to God that fills so many hearts and homes with misery. Do you understand? What produces misery? Lack of money? No. Disobedience produces disharmony, conflicts, wars. May the Lord help us that we understand what is the key of happiness. Obedience to God. Trust to Him. If you remember key text, what Joseph had suggested to his people? Do you remember? To do what? To believe to God. And to believe to whom? To prophets. But how you understand that words? To believe God. What does it mean to believe God? Usually people says, oh, I believe in God. They accept that God existing, but it is not enough. We need to trust in Him. And we need to obey Him. In that case, God will bless us. We can be old, we can be sick, we can be in poverty, but if we obey to God, definitely He will provide us His peace. May the Lord bless us that we can be obedient to God and one day that we can be forever with Him. Amen.